Well, it's happened. The unimaginable. We now have a war in the Middle East with civilian targets. Especially we're talking about civilian targets in the Gulf. So I thought a quick little video on what's on my mind would be useful. I'm actually traveling in Singapore at the moment, but I have a few minutes between meetings, and I thought it's time to kind of talk about what is really going on. Now, we've all seen the news and we all know the headlines, but what does this really mean for our markets, especially for gas markets? Beyond the obvious that if oil prices go up, gas prices will also go up. What does it kind of mean in the longer term? Part of the pitch that the Gulf states have had to their market, all their markets for energy, is that no matter what happens, oil and gas will keep on flowing. Well, we're in a situation now, and it's all very early days, of course, that the oil and gas may not keep on flowing. We have ships that are being attacked, not LNG ships yet, but oil tankers at least have been hit. And we have situations where ships are going to be unwilling, without proper insurance, to go into the Straits and go into the Gulf region in general. This can all happen quite quickly, that this can all ricochet. Many oil and gas contracts require the ships that deliver the cargoes are fully insured. Right now there is no insurance. We expect that insurance to be repriced in the next few days. But there's a lot of ship captains that would just rather not even go anywhere close to this zone. What we forget is 20, 30, 40% of the world's energy goes from the Gulf out. And a lot of gas is part of that energy. Oil, of course, and a lot of gas. Gas from Qatar and gas from Abu Dhabi. There's certain countries such as China and Japan, Korea, Taiwan that are very, very exposed to energy from the Gulf. How they react will be very interesting. At this point, we haven't seen much yet, but I think China is one I will be watching in particular. What China does in the next week or so to maintain its energy sources will be crucial to see how long this conflict will last. China has successfully moved away from American LNG this last year, at least taking it directly. It may have to go back to American LNG if it wants to keep the supplies going, as it may not be able to get anything from the Gulf in a while. Shipping schedules are going to be messed up for a while before things work their way out. It all depends on how long this conflict lasts. But I think China in particular is going to be in a bit of an issue. And then if this thing lasts more than a week or two, Japan and Korea will be hit as well. India is in a very unique position. It gets a lot of its oil and its gas from the region. And India is obviously quite far away from other sources of gas. So it's going to be, I think, the most interesting to see if they are willing to pay and what they're willing to pay to keep that gas going. There's always been an assumption that the Indians are very price sensitive to LNG. I think that we are now reaching a phase that Indians are getting more increasingly dependent on LNG, and this will be a test to see how much they're willing to pay to keep that LNG going. If you look around the sources of the world of LNG, the biggest suppliers of the world in no order are basically the US, Australia, Qatar, Russia. And then after that, we drop into Indonesia, Malaysia, Algeria, and these countries. All of these are having issues. Australia, I think the gas industry has done a very poor job of marketing itself to the public. We haven't paid a lot of our taxes, and thus there's a lot of backlash against exporting any more gas from Australia. And in fact, I wonder how much we can continue our current rates as well. Russia is in sanctions. The UK has now stopped all Russian gas coming in. Europe, obviously that's happening in the next few months. What that means is that Russia is going to be looking to sell more of its gas through gray zones. And there's only certain countries such as China that may be willing to buy that gray zone gas. We could see projects like Yamal, which is approaching 20 million tons, shut in. Because if the Europeans can't take Yamal gas to trade it out, then they may just stop taking it at all and declare force majeure. So Russia is not going to give you a lot more LNG in the future. Qatar has always pitched itself as being this reliable, safe supplier. It has been. But now we are seeing targets, civilian targets in the Gulf, civilian ports, and other things as well, civilian ships. If this conflict continues for more than a week or two, then Qatar's LNG is going to be severely impacted. Its tank will get full, the ship schedule is going to get messed up, and a lot of people that have been dependent on Qatar LNG are going to question how much they have relied on Qatar LNG. So out of those top few producers, we've talked about many of them, Malaysia, Indonesia are both becoming LNG importers. They're not going to give you a lot more extra gas. And so we are really left with only the US. Unfortunately or fortunately, these kind of conflicts will show that the US has probably the best of the choices you have. They're not all great choices. We understand that. The US has its issues, especially with some of the politicization of LNG that we've talked about. But buyers, I think, are going to look at this conflict, even if it's a short-term conflict, and reassess US gas. Europe has a lot of US gas, and it's going to get through this conflict relatively unimpacted in terms of LNG, because the US gas is priced on US gas market, not priced on oil. So even if oil skyrockets, US gas prices shouldn't go up. And so the import price of gas, LNG into Europe is not going to go up. And so Europe's going to start looking pretty good, and the Asians are going to start looking very exposed, especially the Asians without a lot of US gas exposure. So I feel that this is going to have a lot more people, a lot more customers in Asia rethink their dependence on Middle Eastern gas and start wondering whether they should take more American gas. That's obviously not the consequence that we want. You know, the outcome may be okay, but it's not the way we wanted it. War is obviously not a good thing for anyone. My own view is that it all depends on how long this war lasts. If it's a couple of days, we may forget about this and move on, even though, again, the unmentioned has happened, which is actually civilian targets have been attacked. You know, when the Dubai hotel, Fairmont Hotel gets attacked, Dubai has always claimed that it'll never get attacked, and it has been attacked. And the Dubai airport has been attacked. So, you know, that it'll never go back to exactly as it was, but of course, if the war only goes on for a short period of time, that's not going to be a big deal. If it goes on for a longer period of time, we're going to see ships not going into the region. We're going to see insurance premiums very, very high. We're going to see massive economic disruption. And we're going to see a lot of the LNG customers around the world rethink whether their dependence on the region is correct. A lot of them are going to try to declare force majeure. There's a lot of interesting legal stuff. What is a force majeure? Acts of war usually are a force majeure. Qatar may declare force majeure on his delivered cargoes, and a lot of the customers declare force majeure to take their Qatari cargoes as well. You know, we were just a few weeks ago talking about we might have too much gas in the world, and now we're in a situation where suddenly people are saying, well, where are we going to get non-Middle Eastern gas? And that's going to be in places like the US. So that reminds us all the time that this is an incredibly volatile business, and volatility always means interesting things. I expect a bit more interest in US LNG, and I expect some of the customers to rethink their dependence on Qatari gas. I think that energy prices are obviously going to go up. Oil-linked gas prices are going to go up, and maybe this will make people wonder whether oil-linked price is such a good thing, and maybe they need more exposure to other pricing mechanisms such as the US Henry Hub. It's going to be an interesting few days. I hope the war ends soon, but I have a feeling this is going to drag on longer than we expect, especially if civilian targets are impacted, and then there is revenge. If the Saudis or the UAE and the Omanis have to do something to prove to their people that their defense budgets over the last few years were well justified, and they need to protect the homeland as well as attack the aggressor, then we're going to see a multifaceted war with Iran fighting all its neighbors. And who's going to come to Iran's defense? I don't see the Chinese doing much. I don't see the Russians doing much because they're distracted. Chinese, because they like to stay out of these things. So it's going to be how long can Iran keep on fighting till it finally has to throw in the towel? I think it's the easiest thing that it can do is to block the shipping, and that's going to impact markets around the world. So let's just watch what happens. But we live in interesting times, as we said. Good luck, everyone, and be safe. Bye.